So another really great thing that you can do with the curves adjustment layer in Photoshop is to actually color balance your pictures and color correct them, as well as another term for color balance. So what I'm going to do here is just add another curves adjustment layer. And what we went over in the previous video was how to use curves to add contrast and affect light. And all of this was done under the RGB kind of drop down here. So what RGB stands for is red, green, and blue, and those three colors combined kind of create our white light. That essentially just means it's affecting every single channel of light. So when you move around those sliders, um, it doesn't affect the color. But when we hit this drop down menu, you see we have our red, green, and blue channels separately. So let's go into red here and take a look at what happens when I add a point here and then just pull it down. So we actually get cyan when I go down, and when I pull up, it becomes red. So in photography and the way that light and color correction works is that red and cyan are opposites. And then let me reset this here. And then we have green. So if we pull up, it's more green. And then the opposite of green in color correction is magenta. So our picture is very purple when we pull the magenta down. And lastly, we have blue. So if I pull it up, it's going to be blue, and then the opposite of blue here will be yellow. And when you're using curves to adjust for color correction issues, you really very rarely will pull your curves, your curve line here very far. You can see even when I pull it like a little bit away from that line, it already is like really, really different. Um, so anyways, I'm gonna go in here and take a look at my picture, and I think possibly it's a little bit too maybe cyan and maybe a little bit green down here on these rocks. They don't feel like they should be gray. It feels like there's a little bit of a color cast, and that's what I'm gonna fix here in curves. So I think I'm gonna start here with the reds, and I'm gonna put my add a point here in the middle, and then what I'm actually going to do is just use my arrow keys to move up and down a little bit. This way it can be really fine-tuned, because as I said before, you really don't need to move your curves a lot when you're adjusting for color. So because I thought it was a little bit too cyan here, I'm actually just going to bump up my reds a couple points, and I think that does kind of help. And we don't want to go too far that the shirt here becomes red, or that his skin becomes really red. We just want to go far enough that it start to feels more correct. And I think somewhere right around here looks okay. And I'll toggle this eyeball switch here, and you can see that the rocks became much less cyan and a little more balanced. They're more on the red side now, but still like we're really aiming for them to be gray because that's what they are. And I'm also going to go in and check our green and magenta channel here. And I think I might pull down on my greens a little bit because there's some parts like right in here, and it's very, very subtle, and it takes a while to kind of train your eye to see these little flaws in color. And we'll talk about that a lot in class, how to kind of notice any weird color shifts that you need to affect for. But anyways, I think there is a tiny bit of green, like maybe up here a little bit, some in here, and like throughout here, some green that does not feel natural that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to go down just a couple points and make my cursor adjustment slightly more magenta. So as you can see here, the input was 129 and then the output was 126. So I really only moved down 3 points, but it did affect it a lot. So now if we hit this eyeball here, you can see this was my original, and my color corrected image now looks like this. And lastly, what I like to do is just check um, with the blue and yellow channel. Just looking at it, I don't think that it really needs it, but we can play around with it and see what it does, and maybe it'll help. So let's see what happens if I pull down on blue. I'm gonna add a little yellow, and I don't know, maybe that actually kind of helps a little bit. Let's see if we add blue. I think the picture gets a little bit too cool, and his skin maybe doesn't feel as warm. And that's something with portraits kind of benefit from being more on the yellow side. So I think I might even just pull down to like here. So it turns out I actually did need a little bit of yellow. And so I did end up using all three of my color channels here. And um, yeah, so this is how you use curves for color adjustment, and you can do similar things in Lightroom, but this is the way to do it really well and to do it really in a very specific way so that your pictures really end up how you want them to look. Thanks.